Hey, welcome to a new episode of Last Call Baseball, number 129. I'm your host, Orion. I don't know where my attention has gone because I looked at the standings yesterday and I see the San Diego Padres in fourth place in the National League West, 20 games behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. One number sticks out to me. The Dodgers have a positive run differential. They don't just have a positive run differential. They have a plus 71 run differential. They've scored 71 more runs than they've given up. And in the National League, there's only 3 teams that have a better run differential than the Padres. The Chicago Cubs at plus 95, the Dodgers at 168, and the Atlanta Braves at plus 235, which is fantastic. And those 3 teams, the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Braves, are almost assured to be playing in the playoffs in October. Why aren't the Padres going to be playing in October? I would love to go on to Baseball Reference or some other website to see historically what are the best run differentials in the history of Major League Baseball for a team that didn't make the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Padres are in there in that top 20, top 30 teams that have a big positive run differential but didn't make the playoffs. Then you have their third baseman, Manny Machado, who's probably going to be sitting for the rest of the season with his tennis elbow. The second straight year he's had this issue. He may have surgery. Their pitcher, Yu Darvish, he hasn't pitched in, I forget how many weeks. He has elbow inflammation. I have all these elbow issues in San Diego. And I read a couple of articles that suggests that AJ Preller, the general manager of the Padres, potentially is on the hot seat, could potentially be fired. I don't think so. I want the Padres to be better. AJ Preller has been the general manager in some form, the assistant general manager, the executive vice president of baseball operations, all these crazy titles since 2014. Since Preller has been general manager, this is nothing new to you. The Padres have been to the playoffs twice, in 2020 and 2022. Why does someone like this continuously receives contract extension? This is now year 9, and you go to the playoffs twice. Your owner's shelling out boku bucks on players. And here we are in basically the middle of September, 20 games behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. This year, the signings have been really poor. Uninspired, I think is the right word I'm looking for. They went out and signed Matt Carpenter, who had a pretty good couple of months with the New York Yankees last year, and they thought, well, maybe he can tap into that this year. Not so much. Nelson Cruz, who's like 54 years old. Can we please stop signing Nelson Cruz? I love him. He's a fantastic hitter, but for a playoff team, I don't think so. And then I kind of knew something was up in a very bad way with the San Diego Padres when they signed Rich Hill. Rich Hill also is in his early 40s. I love Rich Hill. He was awesome with the Tampa Bay Rays, but he is very much in the back end of his career. This is probably not the type of pitcher you want on a playoff caliber team. The signings this year have been very uninspired. And actually, back in episode 123, when I had Kyle Glazer from Baseball America, he had a really good, concise answer and he broke down the bad signings that the Padres gave out, big contracts to players who don't fit into the way the Padres should be playing baseball. Go check that episode out if you want. In the meantime, we have a new special guest this week, and you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. This week, we are joined by our special guest, Reverend Thomas Dailey, the Cardinal Foley Chair at the Seminary of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Reverend Dailey, welcome to Last Call Baseball.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
What position does Jesus play?
I think he's the general manager. I'm not sure he plays the on-field positions, but certainly he has a hand in all of it.
Reverend, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think Jesus plays shortstop. He is flashy. He's controversial. He loves butting heads. He's one of my favorite quotes of him that is often overlooked when he says, I'm paraphrasing, you know this better than I do, I am not a Prince of Peace, I come with a sword. And he clashes with his elders. He lets everyone know that, hey, I'm great, by the way. I think of him as a young, super duper like Latin baseball player. Because let's be honest, this stuff we don't have to delve into social issues here, but Jesus Christ did not have blonde hair and blue eyes running around modern day Israel. That's who I see Jesus as. And when I was formulating this question with you, I was like, who else from the Bible would be playing baseball? How about this, sir? John the Baptist as the catcher. He's a wild man. He's bearded. He knows there's something greater than himself. Because catchers, a lot of managers used to be catchers.
Sure.
So anybody else in the Bible you think that would translate into a certain position in baseball?
Well, let me disagree with you slightly, or just play along with you, I should say. I'm going to put Jesus as catcher, the sort of one directing all the things that are going on in the field, the one calling the pitches, the one who is at home at that position on the field. I'm going to put John the Baptist out in center field. He's kind of out there. He's the wild man running around, calling off other people. Geez, who else? It's a good question.
Here's my last one then.
Okay.
Instead of center field, do you know who I'm putting in center field? Because I think center field and shortstop are probably the super duper star positions. In center field, okay. Elijah. He's like the Ricky Henderson. He is so good, he doesn't even have to die. Jesus had to die. Everybody else had to die. But Elijah was like, I am so beloved. I am so amazing. I am the center fielder. I have gold chains everywhere. I'm hitting 40 home runs. I'm stealing 40 bags. I may be even talking about Ronald Acuna Jr., but he doesn't play center field. Elijah is the center field on God's 9 in the great baseball diamond in the sky.
Okay, I could go with that. I think the other positions you could probably fill in with lots of people. But,
absolutely.
Right up the middle. That doesn't sound bad. I still put Jesus as a catcher though.
That's good. We have different fantasy teams, but it's a fun conversation to have. Reverend, what called you to the Lord?
The Lord did. It's actually funny. When I was in high school, I had a full baseball scholarship to go and play in college until a priest in high school asked me about becoming a priest. And after thinking about it and praying about it, I had to call the president of that college, who had offered me a full ride and a job at the college. And I told him that I was turning it down. He was shocked. He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I got drafted by a higher power." And he said to me, "That's the only reason I'll let you go." So it was that sense that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I never lost my love for baseball. I've written a lot about it, spoken about it, spoke at the Hall of Fame about it. I think there's a lot of connections between religion and baseball that can be explored.
I want the listeners to know that, yes, you gave up the college scholarship and to play baseball at the collegiate level, but you did go to gain your education at that country that is crazy about baseball, Italy.
I did. I spent 6 years doing all my graduate studies in Italy. I recall I was there in the late 80s, early 90s, and I recall baseball starting there. And they really, did not know what they were doing in terms of the players, but they really looked good. The fashion industry came up with some really nice uniforms, and they've gotten better. But it's just, they play fabulously that game with your feet. But baseball, it just doesn't fit with their culture.
Did you manage to catch any of their games for like the World Baseball Classic qualifiers or anything? I'm guessing Team Italia is like maybe your second team or team of your heart.
Yeah, that's certainly not the team of my heart. I'm going to have to go with the Phillies for that one. But Team Italia, it's in my heart as a soccer team, but or a football team, I should call it, but not for baseball, no.
And so I'm guessing I had read an interview that you were giving a list of books that you had been reading, and one of them was Italian. And so I'm guessing your Italian is still very strong.
It's still functional. Yeah, it still works, especially reading it. Mm-hmm.
Reverend, I have a suspicion here. I don't know where you're from, but I know you live in the Philadelphia area. You went to school in Italy. You speak Italian. I'm thinking that maybe you're Kobe Bryant.
No, he was much more talented. Had much more charisma. No, I am from the Philadelphia area. I taught in Allentown, Pennsylvania for a long time. Now back here in Philadelphia. These are my roots. That's why I've grown up a Phillies fan. And baseball's always been part of that.
So you said that the good Lord drafted you on to his all-star team because you weren't called to it. The Lord called you. Then what called you to become a Philadelphia Phillies fan?
Well, I think just growing up here, they were the first professional games that I saw. Even later when I was teaching in Allentown, the Phillies AAA team is in the Lehigh Valley. Great ballpark experience. Just growing up around here, I had relatives in Baltimore, so I was also an Orioles fan back in the day. But the Phillies are the hometown team, so I'm happy to follow them.
Lehigh has the minor league baseball team there, the Pig Irons?
The Iron Pigs.
The Iron Pigs.
It's a great story. Their marketing team, their marketing group, I don't know who they are, but they're just brilliant. But Pig Iron, which I didn't even know, even living there for 30 some years, is the name of the iron that is the sort of first step in building steel. Bethlehem Steel, the major steel corporation in the country back in its heyday, was headquartered in the Lehigh Valley. And so they took that Iron Pig name, but everything they do is somehow pork related. Their mascots, their food selections, their uniforms, their logos, everything has a connection somehow to the pigs. And it's great fun. It's an experience of baseball, yeah, for sure. But it's the whole experience of baseball. It's perfect for families, school kids. It's in a sense, it's the way community baseball, I think, was meant to be.
Yeah, over the past few years, I've really enjoyed going to minor league games because they're easier to go to because they're in so many more towns. Major League Baseball is just I don't want to say handful, but 30 town, 30 cities. But minor league, you can get it. You can see that everywhere. And it's also really cool to see maybe when you go to a minor league baseball game, the probabilities you're probably watching one of those guys might make a roster in 2, 3, 5 years. And it's always cool. Sure. It's like, oh, that's right. I saw that person over there.
And in the Lehigh Valley, we saw the Phillies on their rehab stints or next to last step before they joined the Phillies. So it's exciting in that respect. But what fascinated me about the minor league games were the families who were at the games. And the kids had fun, but they also learned baseball. The players had fun, but they also learned baseball. It was both kind of an emphasis on the sport, but I think more importantly, an emphasis on the whole experience.
Baseball can certainly be fun, and it's a lot. And being a Philadelphia Phillies fan last year was also a lot of fun because the Phillies went all the way to the World Series, and sure. I genuinely thought that they just seemed like a team of destiny, especially when they upset the Braves and then they powered past the Padres and all that. Do the Phillies have any hope for this postseason?
I think so. Right now, they're playing really well. They're on a tear offensively. But I've seen a lot of sort of social media posts that the record at this point this year is the same, actually a game better than it was at this point last year, and all of those sort of statistical comparisons to last year. But most people say, and I would agree, that the talent on the team is better this year. So if they can make a run, I think they're certainly capable of it. It certainly has the whole city and towns all around here very excited about it. They have as good a chance as anyone. Except maybe the Braves. They have to beat the Braves.
Yeah, whoever they end up. Because I was actually surprised because, again, I think the Phillies have underperformed, even though we have just about 4 weeks left in the season. And everyone is so far behind in the National League East. Everyone is so far behind the Braves that it kind of surprised me how far ahead the Philadelphia Phillies are in the standings for the wild card. I mean, they are 4 or 5 games ahead, which bodes very well for this.
Exactly. Exactly. They're playing well at the right time.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I like how I like how the Philadelphia Phillies owners have gone out and spend money to put a good product on the field for the people of
Mhm.
Philadelphia, for
Mhm.
baseball in general. I'm not a fan of these owners who just penny pinch for the sake of penny pinching, but that's another
Right.
topic.
Like the Angels putting half a dozen players on waivers this
Yeah,
year.
or the that very, I'm not going to say a curse word, sir. Oakland Athletics
Well,
doing athletic things.
we're not even going to mention that.
Exactly.
A team that came from Philadelphia, by the way, long
Yeah,
ago.
that's right. Yeah, Philly, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and
City,
then finally Oakland, and then
right?
probably Las
Las
Vegas in a few
Vegas. Yeah.
years. You write or you teach on the going back to this to the Lord is on the Salesian spirituality, which is it almost seems like stoic in the sense of gentleness, patience, humility, liberty
Mhm.
of spirit.
Right.
Can you, not you, but can one merge that spirit of Salesian spirituality with the demands of a highly competitive situation like athletics at the highest level?
I certainly think so. In sort of the broad vision of Salesian spirituality, the emphasis is on humility. If there's ever a game that makes you humble, besides golf, it would be baseball, where which has been described as a game of imperfection. Right? You hit. You're a great hitter if you succeed 30% of the time. Uh, Error is a statistic in baseball. Um, you know, pitchers have control one day, don't have it the next day. It's a very humbling game. And so, in that broad perspective, I think sure, a spirituality of imperfection is how I would characterize the spirituality of baseball. On an everyday uh, player level, Salesian spirituality is predicated on the concept of living out your particular state in life in a holy way. So you're not called to specifically be a priest or a monk or a nun or something like that. But everyone has his vocation. So baseball players, that's their life, that's their job. Can they bring this spiritual sense to that job? Absolutely. You see players looking up to the heavens and I don't know, making the sign of the cross here and there. But just approaching the game with that sense of humility while striving to be a great player. That's the kind of balanced pursuit of perfection in the game and in life that Salesian spirituality champions.
What are your thoughts on the demonstrativeness of religion, whether you're practicing Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, what have you, being demonstrative? In this case, we're talking about baseball. Or it seems to me like Salesian spirituality is much more internal, not you're just running around saying, look how humble I am, everybody.
Right.
Look how gentle I treat this stray cat. What are your thoughts on the
Well,
demonstrativeness of religion in American sports?
yeah. For some people, I guess that's their way of expressing their faith, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. As you say, though, it's not the focus of Salesian spirituality, which is on humility and telling people you're humble. It's not being humble. But you're right. It's more of an internal thing. It's a spirit thing, not an outward action demonstrative kind of thing. Um, so I don't think that outward show is necessary. Certainly not opposed to it. I wouldn't make a big deal of it. Um, that's just not the humble way of Salesian spirituality.
I can't specifically, I guess I could talk to the Lord on a one-to-one level, but when you have the intermediary here, the voice can be amplified. I just want to share something with you. Sometimes people change favorite sports teams. In this case, it's baseball. And I love this. I love doing this podcast because I use baseball as a prism to see the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And when people change sports teams, it almost seems sacrilege. because you can't just not be religious and then, no, I'm sorry. If you want to become a Christian, you have to go through certain processes. You have to get baptized. You have to do this. You can't just run down to the shop or jump on Amazon and say, I'm going to order some rosary beads. I'm a Catholic now.
Mm-hmm.
A sports fan can't be like, I'm an Arizona Diamondbacks fan, but you know what? I'm going to jump onto hatsbaseball.com and become a Chicago Cubs fan. Do you think theoretically there should be some kind of conversion right if you decide to change teams? It's like, oh, when I was a kid, I supported this team, but I was like, whatever. I like this other team.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversion. Part of me thinks the original adherence to, say, the Cubs would look a bit askew at somebody suddenly becoming a Cubs fan, because there is a sense of lifelong loyalty and suffering through the agonies that certainly Phillies fans have suffered through, and not jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak. But clearly, that's the difference. That's where the equating of baseball or any sport and religion kind of falls by the wayside. It's not quite that serious. Although who was it? Bill Clem, the umpire, said, baseball's not just a game; it's a religion. There is a devotedness to it. Changing uniforms, changing allegiances, changing favorite teams. If one were serious about that, it would take some serious thought and serious action and sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it happens. But I think, and again, I think part of the appeal to baseball is that religious sense of devotion that it inspires in fans. And other sports do that as well. But that loyalty to your team, think of the Red Sox fans who went how long without winning a World Series. There's a certain camaraderie among fans who do that, which is part of the religious sensibility.
Shared experience.
Yeah.
Reverend, you seem to me like a serious man. I don't think that you're going to fall to that trap. I think you're a Phillies fan. Come heck or high water. Yeah.
Indeed.
But for a serious man, I'm going to ask you a less serious, fun question. We always like to fantasize what we would do if we were in a position of certain power, if we were a certain politician, if we were a superstar center fielder.
Sure.
We always think that, if only the team would do X, Y, Z, they would do better. If we were to take you away from the Archdiocese for a good reason, because the good Lord has had you for a long time, but the people of Philadelphia and the Phillies fan need you. If you were to become the general manager of the Phillies, what are a couple moves that you would do to improve the Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, I didn't get a chance to say this to the actual general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, but every once in a while we celebrate Mass at the ballpark before the games. Players, coaches, the employees at the ballpark. I don't recall running into the GM there. Not so much focusing on the team itself, but my greatest concern for baseball and its future is the fan base, in the sense that if young kids don't learn the game and don't appreciate the game, there isn't going to be a fan base except on television and except during the playoffs. I mean, you see this with the Little League World Series every year, and we had a local team that made it. There's a certain experience of the game and the atmosphere that I think young kids are missing out on for whatever reason. And there are lots of them. So my one single greatest piece of advice to the general manager would be to let kids into the game for free. Say if they're with a parent, kids under 12 maybe, and I don't know, you can exclude the playoff games or whatever. I get the economics of it, but it's really difficult for kids to learn and appreciate the game if they don't see it. And with games being on late at night on television, especially playoffs in the World Series, which start at ridiculous times that the players aren't, haven't played all year. And then they go late into the night because of television commercials. You can't have a 12-year-old up at midnight on a school night watching a baseball game. And so they not only do they not learn the game. Quick aside, we had a player in college where I taught. He had never been to a professional baseball game, which once I learned then, and I understood why he was throwing to the wrong base and why he wasn't, doing this and that one. He didn't know. He was a great athlete, but he didn't know the game.
Was this in Italy?
No, it was here in the U.S. When I
was he Italian American? Of course. No, I'm joking.
But I think anything we can do to get kids to experience the game, just by attending, certainly by playing it, I think that in the long run will sustain the fan base for baseball. Because right now, like many other sports, it's driven by television contracts. And it's not driven by in-person participation. I mean, even the various ballparks, the chief design is for the corporate boxes, not for the 12-year-old kids to watch the game. So I think letting kids into games for free, scheduling games at times when kids can attend it, those sort of family nights, and anything that's going to promote young kids learning to love the game. And maybe that's just selfish. I mean, that's how I grew up, learning to love the game. And it's still there. It's still in you, even for a Phillies fan.
I really like that. And preparing the future to continue to love this game. Baseball as a whole does not do that good of a job. I know they do on the Major League Baseball corporate level, they do the RBI initiative.
Right.
And I know specifically, I would even take it further, Reverend, not just to allow kids to come into games for free, but to invest and buy equipment for teams, because baseball is not a cheap sport.
Sure.
The same with ice hockey, the same with football. In the U.S., the only thing that we can compare with calcio, soccer in Italy, is basketball. You need a ball and a hoop. That's it.
Right.
And it's hard to compete with that. And I know the Atlanta Braves have, I know I'm messing up the name, but it's like the Hank Aaron initiative, where they actually provide equipment to young children in young African Americans because that is the number one population where baseball is falling as a form of entertainment, as a form of diversion and just athletics. So I completely agree.
And I know the Phillies have done things about setting up fields in the city, I don't want to say the inner city, but within the city of Philadelphia, trying to establish places where kids can play and all that goes along with that. So yeah, all those sort of initiatives. But I think just getting kids into the game, because you look at the price of taking a family to a baseball game nowadays, they might be able to go once a year, which is just unconscionable. And again, that's the appeal of the minor leagues. It's certainly affordable. Major League Baseball is not. And I think in the long run, that's not going to help the game.
Yeah, minor league, you got fireworks, you got $5, and you got fun. Absolutely, yeah. Right. But again, you want these kids to see things that make them go, wow, how did he do that? And I'm not saying that those minor league players are 100 times better than I am. But the Major League Baseball players are probably 1,000 times better than some of the minor league players as well. Right.
But if the kids are falling asleep at midnight, they're going to miss the wow. And
Reverend, the kids, I'm falling asleep at midnight. It's absolutely insane that a decisive, let's say, Game 5 of the National League Championship Series played on a Wednesday has to go until midnight. Like, come on. Like, it doesn't really need to do that.
Exactly.
Speaking of fun, speaking of watching baseball, we always do it maybe having a drink, eating something. If someone were to go to Philadelphia, number one, to hear the good word of the Lord coming from Reverend Dailey, and then number two, going to a Philadelphia Phillies game, Where would you direct people to go to have? Where do you like to go in a local place for food, drink, coffee, tea, whatever?
Well, locally here, I mean, the probably the most popular stop for food on the way to the game is, of course, Wawa, which is you get your hoagie. We call them hoagies in Philadelphia, and take your food to the ballpark. Great place around here. One of my favorite, the Pub of Penn Valley. It's a local place. Lots of TVs on. Super friendly people. Great chefs. But it's a local watering hole that yes, I frequent, and yes, I recommend. Um, the general one is Wawa. The local one is the Pub of Penn Valley.
I know the Wawa they I think about 5 or 8 years ago they started spreading outside of the Mid Atlantic. Oh, I'm sorry, they started spreading out to other parts of the Mid Atlantic area, Wawa. Because
Right
at first I
where
was like, "What in the world is this?"
right where Philadelphians have moved to. So there's Wawa in Florida. I
Yes,
think there's some in Ohio. Um, but it's a Philadelphia. It's born from Philadelphia for sure, and very popular here, and very convenient. It's a convenience store. It's
I know there's a specific Wawa in Clearwater, Florida, just outside of Tampa, and in Clearwater is this
minor
high A minor league team of the
right
Philadelphia Phillies.
and spring training.
Yeah,
Sure.
the Clearwater Threshers. Have you
Right.
been down to see the Phillies or any of the spring training or minor league down in the Tampa Bay area? That's a great place to
I
go.
have not. I have not yet. That's on my list to get down to Clearwater. I just have to wait for the Easter break here at the seminary to coincide with spring training, and I will
Well,
certainly make a visit there.
Reverend, I think you got an in with the Lord. You can maybe say him, look, we've been doing this for thousands of years. Maybe one year we can just switch out the calendar. Because it's not just obviously you're a Phillies fan, because in the Tampa Bay area, you have the Dunedin Blue Jays, the Toronto Blue Jays, which is about a 15-minute drive from the Clearwater Threshers Stadium. And then just over the bridge, you have the Tampa Tarpons, which is also the high A of the New York Yankees. And then about an hour south drive from Clearwater is the Bradenton Marauders, the high A of the
Right.
Pittsburgh
Right.
Pirates. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can about an hour and a half east of Tampa. The drive is the I just lost the name. The Detroit Tigers team, Lakeland,
Lakeland. Right.
Lakeland something. I forget
Claus. Yeah.
something.
Right.
Highly recommend to go because
I will get there.
because not only Reverend you managed to leave the beautiful city of Philadelphia, but it's February. Let's be honest. To go down to the nice warm weather in Florida. By the way, I
Right.
do not work for the tourism board for Clearwater. They should be paying me for this. Anyways, I'm a big fan of the area, especially in the wintertime. You get to see so much baseball, springtime, and obviously after that, then a
I totally agree. I totally agree.
whole lot of minor league players.
The year changes when baseball season comes back. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Jesus comes back, baseball comes back. It's all fun times. Reverend Dailey, I have had a fun time talking with you. I want to say grazie mille, thousand thank
Prego.
yous. I would have loved to have done this in Italian because I'm always trying to improve it. Ma capisco più chi parlo. No?
Mhm.
Non so. Anyways, uh, Reverend Dailey, again, thank you so much for joining me. I've enjoyed this.
It was
Let us
great
know
fun.
thank you. Let us know where we can read some of your work, listen to your homilies on the good Lord and your fantasy baseball of the biblical players
I'll
of
have to work on that. To
yeah,
work on my team. Work
exactly.
on my draft picks. Yeah, easiest thing is to go to the seminary's website, which is simply scs.edu. You can find lots of stuff there.
I like playing fantasy Bible baseball with Reverend Dailey, and I hope you liked it too. I keep telling you, I love looking at baseball through the world through baseball, whatever it is, sports, politics, religion, baking, whatever, but especially drinking. I'm not going to close the show off without letting you know what I was drinking as I was producing the show, thinking about the show, and recording the show. I have here in my hand Plymouth Sloe Gin. It's on the rocks. And Plymouth Sloe Gin is from Devon County, England, which is in the southwest of England. The way this tastes is, I find it slightly sour, but again, as I said numerous times, I've really come to enjoy sour alcoholic drinks with a touch of sweetness. This gin almost tastes like liqueur, actually. Doesn't taste like your typical gin. And as you could probably imagine, you herbalist out there, the Plymouth Sloe Gin is from sloe berries, which the southwest of England is very famous for. Also very famous for sailing and surfing, if you believe it or not. Most people in Europe go to Portugal to surf, but you can actually surf in Plymouth, England. Before you go surfing or after you go surfing, you can follow us on social media if you want. Give us a rating and review after you go berry picking if you want. But seriously, thanks for listening to Last Call Baseball. Be great and get home safe.